Every time you eat a meal, your body begins an extraordinary and highly coordinated process to control blood sugar, a process so precise that even small failures can lead to serious disease, yet so efficient that most of us never notice it happening at all. And it begins the moment food enters your mouth, because carbohydrates, found in foods like bread, rice, fruit, milk, and sugar, are ultimately broken down into glucose, the primary fuel your body uses for energy. And while digestion starts in the mouth with saliva and continues in the stomach, the real gateway for blood sugar control is the small intestine, a long, folded organ lined with millions of microscopic finger-like projections called villi, which dramatically increase surface area so nutrients can be absorbed efficiently. And as digested carbohydrates reach the small intestine, specialized enzymes break them down into individual glucose molecules that pass through the intestinal lining using dedicated transport systems, first entering intestinal cells and then moving into the bloodstream, causing blood glucose levels to rise, a change that is immediately detected by one of the most important organs in metabolic regulation, the pancreas. The pancreas sits quietly behind the stomach, performing two vital roles at once, producing digestive enzymes and acting as a hormone-secreting sensor. And within it are clusters of endocrine cells called the islets of Langerhans, where beta cells constantly monitor the concentration of glucose in the blood flowing past them. And when glucose levels rise after a meal, glucose enters these beta cells through special channels, triggering a cascade of biochemical events that result in the release of insulin, a powerful hormone that acts as the body's primary blood sugar regulator. And insulin is released directly into the bloodstream, where it circulates rapidly throughout the body, carrying a clear message. Energy is available. It is time to store or use it. Insulin's job is not to lower blood sugar by destroying glucose, but by enabling cells to absorb it, because glucose cannot freely enter most cells without insulin signal. And when insulin reaches muscle cells, it activates transport proteins called GLUT4, which move to the surface of the cell and open the door for glucose to enter, allowing muscles to immediately burn glucose for energy during movement or store it as glycogen for later use, particularly during exercise or fasting. While in fat tissue, insulin performs a different but equally critical role, guiding glucose into fat cells where it is converted into triglycerides for long-term energy storage, while also preventing the breakdown of existing fat, effectively telling the body that there is no need to access emergency reserves when food is abundant. Meanwhile, the liver acts as the body's central glucose manager, a metabolic command center that decides whether sugar should be stored, released, or redistributed. And unlike muscle and fat cells, liver cells can absorb glucose without insulin, but insulin determines what the liver does with that glucose. And in the fed state, insulin signals the liver to convert excess glucose into glycogen, a compact storage form of sugar that can be rapidly mobilized later. And when glycogen stores are full, the liver converts extra glucose into fatty acids, which are exported and stored in adipose tissue, preventing dangerously high blood sugar levels. But the liver's role becomes even more critical when blood sugar begins to fall, such as during fasting, sleep, or prolonged exercise, because at that point insulin levels drop and another pancreatic hormone, glucagon, rises, signaling the liver to reverse its behavior by breaking glycogen back into glucose and releasing it into the bloodstream, ensuring that vital organs, especially the brain, which depends almost entirely on glucose, receive a steady supply of energy. And this constant balancing act between insulin and glucagon functions like a thermostat, adjusting glucose availability minute by minute to keep blood sugar within a narrow, safe range. However, the system does not operate in isolation because the body is not static, and hormones released during stress, exercise, illness, or emotional excitement fine-tune glucose levels continuously, with adrenaline rapidly increasing blood sugar to prepare the body for action, cortisol promoting glucose production during prolonged stress and growth, hormone reducing glucose uptake to preserve fuel for critical tissues, while the brain itself, particularly the hypothalamus, monitors energy availability and influences hunger, metabolism, and hormone release, integrating signals from throughout the body to maintain balance. under normal conditions. This intricate network ensures that glucose is absorbed efficiently from food, distributed where it is needed, stored safely when in excess, and released precisely when required, all without conscious effort. But when any part of this system begins to fail, the consequences can be profound, because if the pancreas cannot produce enough insulin, as in type 1 diabetes, glucose remains trapped in the bloodstream, starving cells while damaging blood vessels and organs. And if cells become resistant to insulin signal, as in type 2 diabetes, the pancreas compensates by producing more insulin until it eventually becomes exhausted, leading again to chronic high blood sugar, inflammation, and long-term complications affecting the heart, kidneys, nerves, and eyes, which highlights just how essential this system is to survival, because blood sugar regulation is not simply about food or weight, but about energy, balance, and life itself, a continuous internal conversation between organs that determines whether your body thrives or struggles, and every second of every day, whether you are eating, sleeping, running, or thinking, your intestines, pancreas, liver, muscles, fat tissue, blood vessels, and hormones are working together in perfect coordination to keep glucose levels stable, powering your cells while protecting them from harm, a silent system so efficient that we rarely appreciate it, until it stops working.